Hi, everyone. Suzette Martinez Valderes here. Welcome. We had some great conversation yesterday. And actually, what I didn't bring up, or I didn't bring up enough, is we had a really huge win here in the 25th Congressional District, which overlaps with the 38th Congressional District. And yesterday it became official. We have a new Congressman elect, Mike Garcia. And let me just tell you, I think if you're on the ground here, whether it was because you were receiving text messages, phone calls, or like me, a piece of mail like every single day for the last 30 days, you felt this buzz and this excitement even during the stay-at-home order and the pandemic. And I think that buzz really came from having an amazing candidate who is working harder than we've really seen in this district for a long time. Well, that hard work paid off because Mike Garcia won. And not only did he win, but he won significantly by nearly a 12-point advantage. So Christy Smith did concede yesterday afternoon. So we officially have a new Congressman-elect, Mike Garcia. Congratulations. I am so excited that my family now has a voice in Washington, a representative to represent my family's values. And I'm so excited to support him. And we're very blessed in this district. So back to Sacramento. Today, I'm very excited to have my friend and an amazing taxpayer advocate, David Wolf from the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, join us. And I'm going to bring David on right now, and we're going to have some really great conversation about taxes and how much we do not like taxes. Welcome, David.
Absolutely, Suzette. Hey, it's good to see you. And yeah, hello from Sacramento, everybody.
Oh, so David, well, first of all, I think that this was your wife's first Mother's Day.
Yes.
This past Sunday, wasn't it? How'd it go?
It went amazing. I mean, obviously not what, we would have preferred. We would have loved to go out to get dinner and have dinner in person and get a babysitter and do all that. So that didn't happen, but someday soon, hopefully. And it's just, it's been great to be able to, be at home and bond with the family. I mean, not ideal, but there's little blessings everywhere.
Right. So I'm just warning you and I'm warning everyone. My husband is a part of the essential workforce, and Charlotte is home today and Shane is not here. So we're going to see how this goes. She hasn't had a nap. So we're going to see how this goes. So I'm sorry if I'm not paying attention as focused as I typically do, and you can understand this, David. There's so many moms out there that are working.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, my daughter's screaming in the room right next to me right now, so I mean, I totally get that. So.
You have good soundproof walls because I can't hear anything.
Well, that's good.
You can probably hear little Miss Elsa that's going to break out in Frozen in a minute. David, can you tell us, first of all, what is the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association? I have your wonderful endorsement, but what does the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association do?
Yeah, so that's a good question. We were founded in 1978 following the passage of Proposition 13. And so people out there might not know what Prop 13 is. It does two things in essence. It captures property taxes at 1% of the price at which you buy your home or business, and then increases that amount by an inflation-adjusted factor of no more than 2% a year. That helps keep property taxes stable, not just for homeowners, but also for businesses and even apartment owners also too. They get stability in their rents because of Prop 13's cap. It really does benefit everybody. And Prop 13 also establishes a 2/3 vote for any tax increases approved by the legislature, as well as any special taxes approved locally. So if LA County sees that down where you're at, decides to approve a special tax to fund transportation projects or the LA Metro system, that requires a 2/3 vote because of Prop 13. So yeah, we've been around for 42 years fighting for taxpayers, and we're just thankful that Prop 13 continues to have the same support today, basically, that it did 42 years ago, over 60% statewide.
Right. So David, first of all, I thank you for your work with Howard Jarvis. It's just we taxpayers don't have a bigger advocate than Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, and you're on the ground assessing policy and propose new taxes and even taxes that we think need to be eliminated every day, and we're so thankful for that. How did you get involved with taxpayer advocacy or just advocacy in general? You know, when I first started my own advocacy efforts, and my understanding that when you that you have a voice, or when you can collaborate with other people, you can actually be effective in making change in your community. That happened for me because I had a niece who was diagnosed as severely developmentally delayed. She was nonverbal on the autism spectrum. And once I saw her journey from diagnosis to intervention to treatment to services, it taught me that I needed to do more. And I think that this moment happens to most people who become advocates. It just happened for you in the sense to be a taxpayer advocate. How did that happen for you?
Yeah, so I mean, it was unique the way it worked out. So I grew up in the Bay Area. I graduated from Sonoma State, about an hour north of San Francisco, and was looking for the next thing to do, and was working on a political campaign actually the year before I graduated, and there were elements in that who were involved in the Sacramento political scene who said, "Hey, have you thought about this fellowship program that's run through Sac State? They have a program for the Assembly, the Senate. You can work for an executive state agency like OES or the Secretary of State. And then they also have a judicial fellowship where you can clerk for a Superior Court judge anywhere in the state." So really, really unique program for college graduates to participate in. It's called the Center for California Studies. It's run through Sac State. And they do pay you. It's a year-long program where you get to obviously intern with a legislator if you're in a legislative fellowship. So was able to get in that program, and that was what I did for a year. And again, great program. I would highly recommend any college student, upon graduation to apply for that. And then after the fellowship year, the office I was in didn't have enough money to keep me on in their budget, so I had to go look for a job. And Howard Jarvis popped up, and I had always been an advocate fighting for lower taxes, limited government, Prop 13. All that really resonated with me, and went into interview with John Kupal, and I didn't find this out until later. But John's like, after I left the interview, he's like, "Yeah, that's the guy. That's who we want." So, and the rest is history, and that was 13 years ago.
Oh my goodness. I didn't realize that you had been there quite so long, because you're only like 20, right?
Yeah, thank you. No, I wish. But yeah, no, I mean, it was right up my alley coming out of college, and it's been a great experience.
That's awesome. So I don't know if it's just California, if it's just Sacramento legislators, policymakers. Well, we talk in numbers, right? Like Prop 13, AB 5. And to the average person that's living their life, they have no idea what all of these wacky numbers are, or how important numbers can be to you and to your life and to your home. Which leads me to, I'm a homeowner. I know what Prop 13 is, but not everybody does. What is Prop 13? What's its history? And why is it so important?
Yeah, so and I see the question on the bottom of the screen. That's a loaded one, and it's it's gonna take a few minutes to unpack there. So
that's okay. There's a lot there, yeah.
Absolutely. So I went into, kind of when you stepped out for a minute, what Prop 13 was already. But again, that was passed in 1978. With over 60% of the vote. And I think it's important to lay out, as you said, what led to that. And what led to it was not uncommon for seniors and individuals living on fixed incomes who had paid off their mortgages, Suzette, believe it or not, to actually get foreclosed on their properties because they couldn't afford the property tax bill. It was not uncommon in the years prior to 1978 for property taxes to double from one year to the next, because property taxes were based on a property's highest and best use. So if an assessor thought that your property would be better suited to be an auto dealership, you were taxed higher as a result of that. And yeah, seniors especially, and those on fixed incomes, really we're being mistreated with higher taxes.
Right.
And that was a big deal. And people don't also realize it took Howard Jarvis 7 times to get Prop 13 on the ballot.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, he went out to try and gather signatures, and it took him forever and a day, and he didn't have enough to qualify the measure. And it took, multiple times to do it, but he was finally able to get it on the ballot in 1978, and the rest is history.
Right.
And,
so in a nutshell, what it does even today for homeowners is it keeps essentially your property interest rate at the 1.5% based on the assessment when it was purchased, right? So they can't just come in any day and say, hey, we want to reassess the value of your home and then as a result raise your taxes, right? It protects us. And whether it's homeowners, commercial property owners, anybody who owns property of any kind is under the umbrella of Prop 13.
That's correct. So yeah, that's a common question that, we get all the time in our offices back when I was working in an office, every week, which is, I only benefit from Prop 13 if I've owned my home since 1978. And that's fundamentally not true. Every single property owner in the state of California benefits from Prop 13, regardless of how long you've owned your home or business. And Suzette, it's a big deal, not just for seniors on fixed incomes, but even for me. I bought my house here 6 years ago, and I would not have been able to afford it without the stability of knowing what my property taxes were going to be, not only, when I bought the house, but 5, 10, or 20 years down the line. So having that stability with Prop 13 is really important. And just as an FYI, it's actually 1% of the price at which you bought your house.
You're right. I think PMI is 1.5%.
And then, I think so. And then it increases by 2% a year. But worth noting that on your property tax bill, you'll see 1.2 or 1.3 or 1.4%. That extra 0.3 or 0.4 could be also due to local bonds and parcel taxes,
right?
That are factored in there. So just wanted to get that out there.
Yeah. So two things. One, because people think, well, Prop 13 only affects property owners, and that's simply not true. If you're a renter, whether a commercial property or you're renting a house, it affects you and could affect you as well. So why should renters care? Why should homeowners care? Why should commercial property owners care? And what is split roll? What does that mean?
Sure. Well, yeah, so renters should care about Prop 13 because even though they don't own homes and they may not directly benefit from it per se, what it does do is keep rents stable. Because obviously any increase in property taxes is going to be passed along to tenants, passed along to everybody. So what is split roll was your question, and why should we care? And it's a great question. So first of all, there is a split roll ballot measure property tax initiative that is going to be on the November ballot. And I get this all the time. People ask, well, what is split roll? And I'm like, I've never heard of that. What are we splitting? What are we rolling? What are we doing? So, it's a great question. So split roll goes all the way back 100 years ago, believe it or not. And it was not uncommon. Well, actually, it was not uncommon. It's always been the case that property taxes are uniform, for residential and commercial properties. In 1978, that uniformity continued with Proposition 13 because it's set at 1%. So residential, commercial, industrial, all set at that same 1% amount. Split roll, just broadly defined, is a splitting the roll between residential properties and commercial industrial properties. There's a lot of different ways you could do a split roll. You could adjust the 1% property cap for commercial and industrial properties to something higher. Or you could do what's been proposed on the November ballot, which is properties basically get reassessed every 3 years. Now, there's some exemptions to that. If you own property in a state where it's under $3 million, you're exempt from this provision. If you're a small business where you own your own business with less than 50 employees, you're exempt for 3 years. Agriculture is exempt from this split roll process, but just the agricultural land, not like barns or anything else like that. Any improvements to the land are not exempt. And then
Right.
homeowners obviously are exempt too. So you might ask, why does Howard Jarvis care about this measure when it doesn't impact, our homeowner members? And the simple answer to that is it's a slippery slope, Suzette. I mean, today, and legislators have even said this, today they're coming after commercial business owners, and tomorrow they want to come after us as homeowners.
Right.
So we know it's coming. And just to make the point, split roll would just be devastating for commercial properties up and down the state.
Right.
With those types of exemptions. Supporters for the initiative are running around saying, hey, it only impacts those greedy corporations and those Fortune 500 companies. But listen, you're not getting $12 to $14 billion a year of new revenue off the backs of Fortune 500 corporations. That's going to come from small businesses.
Right.
And that's where they're going to get most of the money from. So
I love that you bring up the slippery slope because one of the things is, I operate a small preschool and I have a 3-year-old who you guys have probably heard asking me if I don't even know what she's getting into right now. It might be a little scary after this, but one of our favorite books is If You Give a Mouse a Cookie, right? And the premise of that book is if you give a mouse a cookie, he'll ask for a glass of milk. If he asks for a glass of milk, he'll ask for a straw, and so on and so on and so forth. Sacramento is the mouse that always comes back for more. The gas tax, car registration, fees, right? They are always coming back for more. This is just the beginning. I'm really frustrated and I'm really angry. Obviously, I think that a lot of us that keep our ear to the ground knew that this proposition was being put together, that they were trying to qualify it. They've been trying to do it for years. I was really surprised to hear that they're gonna move forward with having this proposition on the ballot. And you're gonna have to tell us the name of that again, because it's something about rainbows, puppy dogs, and supporting small children. I'm joking. That's not that. It's just the way that they like to phrase it is very scary. But it's frustrating because in my district particularly. The Santa Clarita portion of this district has the 3rd highest unemployment rate in the state. We're the 17th hardest hit city in the nation. Unemployment is through the roof. We have not seen unemployment this high in this district ever. And part of that reason is because one of our largest employers is Six Flags Magic Mountain, an amusement park, a theme park. It is Princess Cruises, who owns a big property here, or is headquartered and owns a big property here in the district. These are the very businesses that would immediately be impacted should this proposition pass. And they cannot sustain. We don't know if they're going to open for the rest of the year. Businesses cannot sustain this now, especially, and it's so frustrating. What is the initiative? What can people do to make sure that this doesn't pass? Because it's going to affect everybody, not just the big Fortune 500s companies.
Yeah, no, and Caesar, just to be clear too, just to go back and define better what it was, I mentioned some of the exemptions, but if you don't fall under any of those exemptions, it adjusts the split roll portion of the measure, actually adjusts the property taxes up to market value.
Right.
Over a period of 3 years. And so, I mean, it's the other thing to mention too, it's murder for county assessors because they're going to have to go through over a 3-year period and reassess 1/3 of their commercial and industrial properties every single year in order to comply with this. And then if you're a taxpayer, you can file an assessment appeal and they're going to have to deal with those. And it's going to be a gigantic mess.
Right.
So assessors hate this measure just for the complexity of it. And I mean, that's another important reason to get out. You're just adding additional, you want to talk about give a mouse a cookie. It just adds additional level of government and bureaucracy. And before you know it, you're giving everyone cookies.
Right. So we do have actually quite a few questions. People submitted questions beforehand, not just about Prop 13, but which is obviously at the forefront of our minds. But who was from Facebook? We have this first question is, we kind of answered this, but I want to say it out loud. Do you think that the attempts to change Prop 13 will end with just rolling back protections only on only business properties? We both answered that no.
Yeah.
And then, so the way it's for taxpayers and homeowners, COVID-19 has really created quite the chaos, not just thank you, honey. I know it's messed up. Sorry, guys. She's her chapstick is messed up right now. So the question that we have here is, what happens if my property tax is included in my monthly mortgage and I want to apply for a 90-day mortgage forbearance? Will I still have to pay the percentage of my mortgage that it's allocated to?
Yeah. So no, it's a good question. So for those individuals not aware, property taxes, the second portion of the annual property tax was due on April 10th. Obviously, there's a lot of individuals who, especially who don't have escrow accounts, who were impacted by COVID-19, who couldn't make that payment. Both the governor and county treasurer tax collectors have come out and said that, if you have been impacted by COVID-19, either through contracting the virus directly or through losing your job, for example, you are eligible to, fill out a form waiving interest, fees, and penalties. And the governor is allowing for a 1-year, basically, suspension of those property tax payments. However, you should still reach out if you haven't paid your second installment yet. Still reach out to your county treasurer, tax collector in your county, and just ensure that you filled out the right paperwork and that you do actually apply for a COVID-19 related exemption from this, because we're finding out not everyone who you would think would qualify is qualified. So definitely communicate with government. It's always better to communicate with government than just take things for granted, because that's when fines and penalties and all sorts of craziness happens. So, and in terms of mortgage forbearance, generally speaking, if your property tax is included in your mortgage payment, your escrow company already paid it a long way prior to April 10th. So that doesn't mean your mortgage payment, but your property tax has probably already been paid.
Got it. So this next question is good. So, and it's kind of, so with anticipated budget cuts or this recession, and it's debatable on this, are we even going into a depression? There's so much that's up in the air right now. Do you think government will increase taxes to make up for the loss of revenue? I mean, this is Sacramento we're talking about.
Sure. Yeah, I see that. No, absolutely. And should you get elected in November, you're going to be diving right into this, and right off the bat, and it's going to be an interesting trial by fire experience for sure.
Right.
I lived through the 2008 recession as a lobbyist for Jarvis, and it was a very interesting time, which did include tax increases.
Right.
Income, sales, car taxes back in 2009, it was a real thing. So the governor came out a couple of weeks ago and said, hey, there's a $52 billion budget deficit. He came out today and he's made a revised press conference and didn't propose any direct taxes that would impact individual homeowners or taxpayers, which is a good thing. No broad-based income or sales taxes or car taxes. But a lot of the solutions that he proposed to make up the budget deficit we're basically asking the federal government for additional money,
right,
in the form of trigger cuts. And that's a concern because, the feds might come through with more money or they might not. And if they don't, then, we might have to come back and revisit the budget in August once we get income tax revenue figures coming in. And so, the threat of taxes is always there. And it's concerning, Suzette, when, as a state, we do have the highest income and sales taxes by far in the nation, highest corporate tax in the Western United States, top 5 in terms of highest cash taxes. And even with Prop 13, we're middle of the pack. We're like 15th in per capita property tax amounts. So we're already a high tax state.
Right.
And, I fear that's coming. I just, don't know when and don't know what, but we're obviously going to continue to be vigilant.
Right. And you know what? We've been through this before in the sense that we went through the market crash, the housing market crash in 2008, 2009, completely different scenario. There was a liquidity problem. We've had a strong economy prior to COVID-19. And in California, even before COVID-19, there was a very overreaching regulatory environment that was, in my opinion, really limiting our ability to create an even more robust economy and workforce. And I truly believe that there are a lot of things that we can do through the power of the pen when it comes to regulatory reform to spur our economy that would and manufacturing and bring back our workforce. There are lots of things that we can do that will generate the funds that we need to sustain our government at the state level and at our local level. And I know that especially local governments are very concerned about what their revenues are going to look like coming out of this, and how are they going to be able to provide the most basic services such as public safety or the very basics. And there are things that we can do that do not require raising taxes. And I'm committed to doing as much of that as humanly possible in Sacramento. But the reality comes down to the fact that we need balance in Sacramento. We need more people that think like me, whether they're Republican or not, that realize that we can do things differently and get to the same place. How, in your opinion, can we bring some balance to Sacramento?
Well, I mean, Suzette, by getting either you or your opponent elected to the assembly would help, honestly. Especially in your particular instance, because you have signed the front end of a check. You do understand what it means to run a business, and there's so many legislators up in Sacramento, Republican or Democrat, frankly, that don't have that experience. And money is just something you grab off the money tree. And it's disturbing. It really, really is truly disturbing, the lack of comprehension and depth on that. How can we ease regulatory burdens? Well, I mean, the governor, since he's de facto running the state and can issue whatever executive orders that he wants, he can start by not signing crazy workers' comp orders that basically tell businesses, hey, you've got to cover employees that get COVID-19, whether or not you can prove that they got it on the job or not. And exaction for businesses, small or major, just off of that decision alone, never mind AB 5 or some of the other things that you referenced earlier, it's just going to be so debilitating for taxpayers as we come out of the state with a 24% unemployment rate.
Right. And that's it. I mean, the problem is they are putting, unwarranted the burden on businesses. It's expensive to do business in California, and expensive at every level because the costs just keep on going up and up and up. Just like the cost of living is going up for everyday Californians, the cost of doing business is going up consistently as well here in California. So it has got to come to an end. And I think we're seeing both the electorate and just everyday Californians wanting to move in a different direction. And like I was mentioning before you got on, Mike Garcia won in a special election. It's my understanding that there were over 160,000 votes so far counted, which for a special election in the middle of a pandemic is huge. That's a big turnout. People are not giving that credit due, and it's a referendum. It's a referendum that we need to do things differently. We need to elect people that think differently. We need to elect people that have written checks from both the front of the check and the back of the check, and that's what I'm really excited about doing with your help, being right there to advocate with you, and anything that you need. Let's please get it done together. I'm going to give you one last chance to talk about where people can find out more about the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. Can they donate to you? What can people do to get involved?
Absolutely. No, Suzette, thanks again for having me on, and for everyone watching out there. It's just a joy to be able to share information about Prop 13 and split roll and taxes. The website for the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association is hjta.org. Again, hjta.org. If you have any questions about what you heard today and you want to reach out to me directly, my email is david@hjta.org. And finally, just membership dues. Membership to the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association is just $15 a year. As I commonly like to say in my speeches, it's the best deal in show business. So if you enjoyed what you heard today, 90% of the contributions we bring in any given year come from $15 donations. And you can sign up online if you want, again, at hjta.org, a credit card, or we can mail you out a brochure. You can write a check. That's exact. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, David. Guys, she needs a nap. You were amazing. Thank you for dealing with that. I mean, I know lots of moms are dealing with this too, but thank you so much. I look forward to having you on again.
I'm good. Thank you.